The story begins with a seismic policy shift, one that would send shockwaves through boardrooms and households alike. The Trump administration introduced a bold new approach: reciprocal tariffs, a move that would redefine America's role in the global economy. Under this policy, if another country imposed taxes on American goods, the U.S. would respond in kind, matching those tariffs dollar for dollar. The goal was clear: to level the playing field and protect American interests. President Trump argued that for years America's open markets had been taken advantage of, with foreign nations benefiting at the expense of U.S. workers and industries. The new tariffs were aimed squarely at major trading partners, especially China, but the impact didn't stop there. The effects rippled across continents, touching every corner of the global marketplace. The administration believed these measures would revive American manufacturing, bring jobs back to U.S. soil, and shield domestic industries from unfair competition. But for everyday Americans and businesses, the reality was more complicated. Suddenly, higher costs became a daily concern. Everyday items, electronics, clothing, groceries, began to climb in price, straining household budgets and forcing families to make tough choices at the checkout. The global marketplace seemed to shrink overnight, as international trade slowed and prices soared, leaving both businesses and consumers scrambling to adapt. Companies that relied on complex global supply chains suddenly faced chaos. Years of careful planning and optimization were thrown into disarray as tariffs disrupted the flow of goods and materials. The list of tariffed goods grew longer by the week, creating a climate of instability and uncertainty that made it nearly impossible for businesses to plan for the future. Many business owners found themselves caught in the crossfire of a trade war they had no power to control, watching as profits shrank and tough decisions loomed. In this new economic reality, a single policy announcement could upend entire business models overnight, leaving companies and workers alike bracing for what might come next. For decades, Amazon was synonymous with low prices, convenience, and a seemingly endless selection, all delivered at lightning speed. The company's business model was built on razor-thin margins, global reach, and the promise of affordable goods for everyone, everywhere. But when tariffs were introduced, they struck at the very core of Amazon's operations, threatening the foundation on which the retail giant was built. Millions of third-party sellers, many of them based overseas, depended on Amazon's vast platform to reach American consumers. These sellers fueled Amazon's growth and kept prices low. Suddenly, the cost of importing goods soared overnight. Shipping containers were delayed, customs inspections intensified, and the price of doing business skyrocketed, putting Amazon's competitive edge in serious jeopardy. In response, Amazon began displaying a U.S. tariff surcharge at checkout, a bold and unprecedented move designed to highlight the direct impact of these new policies on everyday shoppers. Shoppers who had grown accustomed to bargains and effortless one-click buying were suddenly hit with sticker shock. The magic of instant gratification began to fade as prices crept higher. Internally, Amazon faced a painful dilemma. Absorbing the extra costs meant watching profit margins evaporate, while passing those costs on to customers risked driving them away to competitors. Quarterly reports turned grim, with billions in losses mounting. Investors grew anxious as the company's financial outlook darkened. The era of endless cheap goods and reliable two-day delivery was suddenly in jeopardy. Empty shelves and delayed shipments became more common, frustrating loyal customers. Amazon's leadership realized that their deep ties to a single nation had become a liability in an increasingly unpredictable world. Their business, their customers, and their supply chains were truly global, spanning continents and cultures. Remaining an American company in a hostile environment now seemed untenable. The risks were simply too great to ignore. Amazon's top executives knew a radical solution was needed. They began to consider options that would have once seemed unthinkable. And so, the search for a new home began, a quest to secure Amazon's future in a rapidly changing world. Under pressure, Amazon announced it was exploring moving its global headquarters out of the U.S. This wasn't a bluff, it was a public declaration of intent. The company sought a stable, pro-business government, a world-class logistics hub, and access to global talent. Amazon wanted a sovereign partner, not just a new office. Countries lined up, the EU pitched Dublin and Amsterdam. Singapore offered its logistics prowess. Each promised tax breaks, streamlined regulations, and a tech-friendly environment. The competition was fierce, with nations courting Amazon's leadership directly. They offered not just incentives, but a vision of partnership and innovation. For Amazon, this was a chance to become a truly global company. The decision would redefine its future. The world watched as Amazon weighed its options. The United Arab Emirates, centering on Dubai, made the winning offer. The UAE promised a 50-year corporate tax exemption and a special Amazon zone, an economic area with its own rules, designed with Amazon. Dubai's location at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and Africa offered unmatched logistics advantages. Preferential treatment at airports and ports meant global reach within hours. Beyond logistics, Dubai offered a vision: Amazon would help shape the region's tech future. The UAE promised collaboration on AI, drone delivery, and regulatory freedom. The package solved Amazon's tariff and tax problems and provided stability. The decision was clear. Amazon would move its global headquarters to Dubai. The deal was signed. The world braced for the fallout. Amazon's exit hit Seattle like an earthquake. The city's economy, real estate, and identity were tied to the tech giant. Panic spread. What would happen to jobs, local businesses, and the city's future? In Washington, D.C., officials condemned Amazon's move as unpatriotic. Wall Street reacted brutally. Amazon's stock plummeted, erasing billions in value. The broader market stumbled, raising fears about America's business climate. If Amazon could leave, who might be next? Seattle faced a budget crisis, empty office towers, and a collapsing housing market. The city's tech-fueled boom threatened to reverse overnight. The risks of relying on a single corporate giant became painfully clear. For Amazon, it was a rational response to unsustainable policies. For Seattle, it was a harsh lesson in economic dependence. The shockwaves were just beginning. Amazon's move to Dubai marked a shift to a post-national identity. The company aimed to become stateless. Headquartered in a neutral hub, operations spread worldwide, allegiance only to shareholders and customers. National borders became operational hurdles, not defining features. By basing itself in a free trade zone, Amazon insulated itself from political pressures. Regional subsidiaries would comply with local laws, but the core would exist above national politics. This allowed Amazon to play countries against each other for the best deals. The Dubai move was the ultimate act of geopolitical arbitrage. The goal, a resilient, decentralized corporate structure beyond any single government's control. Amazon's move tested the theory that digital corporations can exist everywhere, and nowhere, at once. The age of the global corporate nation had arrived. Amazon's bold departure sent a powerful message to every U.S. multinational corporation. You have options, and you don't have to accept the status quo. The world is bigger than any one country's policies, and companies can choose where they want to call home. What was once just a theoretical possibility suddenly became a real, tangible path. In corporate boardrooms across America, executives began to seriously consider their own exit strategies, weighing the risks and rewards of following Amazon's example. Tech giants like Apple, Google, and Microsoft watched the situation unfold with intense interest. These companies, too, are deeply reliant on global supply chains, international talent, and the ability to operate across borders. The stakes for them are just as high. Amazon's move proved there was a real alternative to simply absorbing higher costs or spending years on endless lobbying efforts. It was a wake-up call that companies could take control of their own destinies. The precedent was set. Others could follow. The domino effect was no longer just a metaphor, it was a looming possibility. Manufacturers in industries like autos, pharmaceuticals, and consumer goods faced similar pressures from rising costs and regulatory uncertainty. They too began to question whether staying put was the best option. If U.S. policies remained hostile or unpredictable, more companies might seriously consider relocating their headquarters, moving talent and capital to friendlier shores. The allure of stable, tax-friendly hubs like Dubai or Singapore grew stronger with every passing day. These cities offered not just financial incentives but also a sense of security and opportunity for growth. Suddenly, the U.S. found itself in a new position. It had to actively compete to keep its own corporate giants from leaving, rather than simply assuming they would always stay. In a world where capital and talent can move freely, the old assumptions about corporate loyalty no longer held true. The global landscape had shifted. If America isn't attractive, if it can't offer the right environment, its biggest and most innovative companies may simply pack up and leave, taking jobs and investment with them. Amazon might be the first to make this move, but if things don't change, it's clear they may not be the last. The world is watching and the next chapter is still unwritten. Amazon's move forces a tough question. What does it mean to be an American company today? Once it meant being founded, headquartered, and rooted in the US, a symbol of national pride. Now companies are global, manufacturing in Asia, call centers in India, profits in Ireland. Nationality is becoming a flag of convenience, not a core identity. The primary allegiance is to global markets and shareholders. If corporations no longer feel loyalty to their home countries, what do they owe in return? Amazon's move signals a shift in power from nations to corporations. Capital can now veto national policy by leaving. As the world changes, we must ask, what does patriotism mean for a company in 100 countries? Amazon's departure leaves questions that will shape our economic debate for years to come.